How's the weather in DC, Michael?
It's very nice right now. It's actually 70 something degrees and sunny. So I can't
Oh,
complain about
wow.
that. Last week it was like in the 40s and miserable. So I'll take some decent weather here for at least the next couple of days.
Very cool. How far are you out from an actual snow event?
Oh, always. I mean, we don't worry about snow until Thanksgiving at the absolute earliest. So
Yeah.
there's
Just a
still
month.
plenty of time.
What about you, Tyler?
We're probably Thanksgiving, early December, maybe at earliest.
Hmm. Hmm. So generally speaking, we still got time to just get ready for the snow operations, right? And the any part of the country that has already started getting snow?
Upside, I think somewhere northern plains, like North South Dakota, got some the other day. Minnesota, a little bit of Minnesota.
I see. It's coming down.
Colorado has it in the forecast for this weekend, whether it actually hits or not, but it's going down to like 17 degrees. So
Interesting.
it's coming.
Nebraska's supposed to get some this weekend too.
Where?
Nebraska.
Oh,
Oh.
interesting. I'm not very good with geography. Is North and South Dakota close to Nebraska?
It's north of it. I mean, Nebraska's
North
like
of
the
it?
middle. Yeah, you were in Omaha. Omaha's in Nebraska.
Yeah.
It's like in the central center of India, or center of United States.
Mm. All right, sweet. Sabi, any more? Okay, folks will keep joining. I think we are a few minutes into the webinar schedule. Let's kick this off. Um, so excited to have you all here. Um, when you look at snow operations and you compare it with landscaping operations, the list of things that could go wrong with snow is so much longer than landscaping. It's and that's why this conversation, it seemed, was so important to sort of help you bring some organization in that chaos. And hopefully we'll be able to talk some items that you can take away from this. We want to keep this session interactive. So as we talk through the discussion points, please keep dropping questions in the chat. Sabby and Raj are here with me. They will, stop us as we are discussing stuff. Help us, take up your questions, answer them. Towards the end of the session, we'll have a dedicated Q&A session too, but feel free to keep dropping your questions in chat. We will have the recording of the session sent over to you afterwards, and contact of the speakers you have on the session here to talk to you guys to continue the conversation. Tyler, if you got your link, please go ahead, post that in the chat so folks can connect with you if they want. All right, introductions. I am Utkarsh, founder CEO at SiteRecon. If you look at SiteRecon, it's the only mapping platform that's been built for the green industry and, of course, for the blue industry too. If you think about snow, it's an open platform, consolidates all your mapping information in one place so that you can distribute it across your team and you can, take benefit of the mapping that one guy does and build on top of it as the customer moves from sales to account managers to operations. So moving from takeoffs to site assessments to operations plans and actually getting all of that in the hand of your crews and the decision makers at the branch level. I've got here with me two speakers, Tyler and Michael. Michael, would you like to go first? Introduce yourself.
Sure. Michael Mayberry. I am the director of customer at Scythe Robotics. And prior to that, I spent the last 7 years being CTO at Level Green Landscaping out of Washington, D.C.
We've seen a lot of snow events, for sure.
Yes.
Very cool. Tyler, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so my name's Tyler Hartman.
But we're all taken care of, man. I got Ready Rents right next door to me.
account
And then I work
executive here
tomorrow,
at
get my equipment, so
SiteRecon, and recently just joined the team, and I will be heading up the Midwest region.
Sometimes used.
Previous to this,
Hang on, Tyler. Sorry about that. Sabby, can you mute Brandon? Thank you, Brandon. Go on, Tyler.
Yeah, so I'm just to refresh. I'm new to the SiteRecon team. I am based here in the Midwest. Previous to this, I was at a different software company, but even before that, I spent about 11, 12 years managing a location in Indianapolis, full service snow removal landscaping company as well. Did $1 to $2, $3 million a year, sometimes in snow removal revenue. So very familiar with operations. Even in the Indianapolis market, but even traveling up to, the Chicago area, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, those types of places to, perform services. So definitely familiar with the industry and all the challenges that everyone, comes through with those. And, as you're starting to, develop plans, a tool is definitely going to be, in your back pocket for sure.
This is Tyler's first social outing as a SiteRecon agent. Welcome on board, man.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate all of you folks here with us today. Let's get into it. So I want to kick this off by asking an open-ended question to you guys. What, in your opinion, what makes snow operations so hard? Michael, would you like to kick that off?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that makes snow operations difficult is there's so much going on at one time, and you may be going to properties that you didn't have the maintenance on. So it could be that it's a new environment for teams, but logistically, there is just so much going on at usually the middle of the night. And in the past, certainly with not a great plan. I feel like a lot of times it's just, hey, we got to go put out fires. And then that's when more issues kind of pile on top of each other. So it's very difficult to put together a good plan and keep a good plan all the way through the event because of the things that may happen. So having a plan where you can say, this is where to put the snow, don't forget about this area over here, will help your crews to run more autonomously, which is what you want. You need them to be able to go produce the work, and you have to have some type of method that can verify that work is done without having to send a manager out there, because that's just a waste of time.
Yeah, and to speak, especially, on Michael's point, he's absolutely right. The best companies in the world can plan, but snow events are, you can plan as much as you want, but you never know how much we're going to go. Is it going to freeze? Is it going to? There's a lot of those variables, and you really just have to be agile with with your with your production, and on top of that, going into even outside the production side of things, challenge for what we used to have is, how do we communicate our post services to our customers? How are we doing that, and how are we basically controlling our liability from an operational standpoint? How do we prove that we were there at 1 o'clock in the morning if they're not there? Maybe they're 3 states away. We don't know. Definitely been there where we've had times where people have said, oh, hey, you were here at 1 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, we were. Well, I came in at 7:30 and there's an inch on the ground. Yeah, it snowed more since then, type of thing. So there's several different aspects to it. Mine's more on the reporting side, and how we communicate that the services that we perform, but also protect our bottom line and any slip and fall possibilities that we might have.
Right. It's like the operation starts November, December, and then there's no more snow to push after March, and there's this like hibernation period of 7-8 months. The organization sort of loses its muscle memory to go push out snow and has to sort of get into the groove again 7-8 months later, and there's like this whole ramp up, and it's so random when it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely going to be a thing that you're planning right now, and like Michael said earlier, where he's at, you don't start before Thanksgiving, but unfortunately we can have an idea when the temperatures start to drop, but we don't know when that first snow fall is going to happen. Are we going to get some ice over the middle of the night in December? We don't know, but we have to plan as if it's going to happen. So that's a challenge with being in snow operations, is just making sure that you're ready and your resources are in line and you have a good game plan. Obviously, the best game plan, so you're not going to be able to stick by it because you're going to have to be agile. But at least have some sort of plan, pre, post, both snow operations is key.
Yeah, and I would say that snow operations actually start earlier. They really start in August because that's when you're trying to get customers to actually sign on for the contract, so you know how to staff your teams and what equipment you need. And so once those contracts start rolling in, then it's a matter of detailing those sites to catalog any damages that may have been there previously, or if it's a new site, getting the operators out there to be able to see where the right spot is to put snow and start creating documents that catalog all that information. So it really starts in August.
Absolutely.
When you prepared, we'll just get into it in a second. When you prepared for your snow operations, what technologies were you using to get ready for it?
Yeah, so for me, we were creating snow maps, and honestly, we were just using like an editor tool to draw on them. It really took a lot of time for our team, and highlighting stacking areas, cart corrals, exits, those types of things, storage areas for equipment if we get equipment on site, those types of things, which are very, very manual process. Which, I mean, we still have to have some way of doing it, but be able to keep all that centralized into a spot would have been key for us back then. We just had a bunch of files, PDF files, sitting in a folder in a computer, and we did that as far as our technology. Now, as far as we tried to do like after photos, but being able to connect those photos to any kind of post service was very, very difficult. We had GPS tracking on our trucks, so you can see we were on property, but we had an incident, and we'll kind of get into it a little bit too, where GPS on site's great, but how do we know you did anything while you're there? How do you know that? That's when you get into lawyers and those types of things, they're going to ask for more things to prove that you actually perform service and you weren't just there sleeping in a truck.
Yeah, I think that's very common to just have PDFs or paper copies of stuff. And that's the way that we did it at Level Green in the beginning as well. And we all know that those paper copies in trucks during snow events are not going to make it through a whole season. So that means they need to be reproduced the following season. And it means that at some point during the season, information is lost because that paper has gotten thrown away, or it's unreadable because a salt bag sat on top of it or something like that. So we did switch over to using SiteRecon to catalog all of these items, because it persists 1 year from the next. And then it's just a matter of having your teams use the mobile app to find these data points.
Especially if you got notes written on top of paper, they're not going to last the season. And then that's the loss of information, really.
And even beyond that too, if you have to send other people to sites too, the access to have it on the cloud, easily to access it, you don't have to track down that paper and make sure, hey, did you give that paper to somebody or that site plan to somebody? You just log in and you're able to see it. So definitely a key feature as technology starts to evolve in the snow and landscape industries, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, that's another great point, that we know that one crew is going to finish before another crew, and we're going to end up sending them there. And you can't possibly put every single job site into every single crew's binder. And at Level Green, 5 branches, there are times where maybe it doesn't snow as much in the DC area. So we're sending those crews up to the northern region to help out. So absolutely, having that in a space that is retrievable by anybody is very beneficial.
100%. So that's the production side of things. A conversation I had a few weeks ago with one of our customers ended up being very enlightening. We were talking about the customer side of things. And they shared with us a list of checklists that Walmart shares with all of its contractors, and it's surprisingly detailed. The expectation they have now. Walmart is smart. They documented it and then they share it with everybody. But even HOAs or a single property facility manager would have the same expectation, although they may not have it documented. And it felt like, I mean, to me, it felt like they were doing an advertisement for SiteRecon, honestly. To look at this, like, guys, feel free to take a snapshot of it. We will send you the video afterwards so you can look at it. But see what they are saying. They define goals. They say create a plan, document damages, communicate plan to the snow management team. That's literally the first 3 points they've talked about. You were just talking about that. You didn't even look at the list.
Absolutely.
So, like, this is a fair assumption, right? Like, all customers have the same expectation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, even if it's an HOA, if it's not a commercial spot, maybe Mrs. Jones doesn't want any type of salt product used on her driveway because it'll react and tear up the concrete. So how do you pass that information from 1 year to the next, or even one event to the next? And there are a lot of ways that we've done it as landscapers, being creative like we are. We put snow stakes in yards to identify certain things, but why do that? All of those have a failure point, which will lead to incorrect service and lower customer satisfaction. So being able to keep it in a spot that is easily accessible year after year is the way to move, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, taking the idea of putting this documentation, like Michael said, into something centralized, you don't have to recollect this information every year. This is here. So yeah, do the legwork early. And as you add on, you keep just adding to this portfolio. And obviously you come back next year. Okay, Mrs. Jones last year said no ice melt on our sidewalk or driveway. Good. We already have that notated. How do we handle it last year? How are we going to manage it this year? And we already have that information. So keeping things centralized is definitely going to be key to any kind of snow operations.
I think another benefit that this checklist is sort of forcing you to do is coming up with an actual production plan. And that's the great thing using SiteRecon is you can highlight areas and say skid 1 is going to do this area, skid 2 is going to do this area, and they're going to move in this direction, and the hand laborers are going to start here and they're going to move in this direction, so that there's a clear and concise plan, so that no matter who shows up to that job, the job can be produced exactly the same way. And I think that's all our customers are looking for, is they're looking for consistency. And so if we can do that by providing a tool like this to our teams, then it's only going to increase customer satisfaction.
Yeah, and even with that, Michael, that's a good point, because you might go to like a Target, for example, and you might show the snow plan to the store manager, and you might start in these areas 1, 2, and 3 and move in that order. And then when they come in, they go and someone asks, nope, they're in 1, they're going to move to 2, and they don't have to call us and say, hey, what's the plan? Or when are these going to be done? It's a nice, fluent process for them. Saves your
timing. Go on.
No, I was just saying it saves your team from taking those calls and saying, oh, what part's this going to be done? It's just one less thing that we have to worry about managing if we communicate early on, what our objective is on this site.
Communication is hard during storms because we're running around, we're looking at sites, we've got people calling us, say, when are you going to be there? What is the plan for my property? At HOAs, is it how long until you get to my driveway? And having a plan that you can share solves a lot of those communication issues. And again, it's proactive communication, which is so much better than reactive communication. So this gives you the ability to be proactive, and then it gives a better sense of, oh, I know what is going to happen to the customer, and they don't have to reach out, because exactly like you can say, oh, I see they're now on the west side of the building, they're now going to move to the north side, and they should be done roughly in 2 hours.
Absolutely. Yep.
I was talking to a property manager at a BOMA event a few years ago, and I was asking her about, how do maps make sense to you? And the only use case she brought up was how she could use these maps that tell you, okay, we're going to clear the parking spaces between, 8 to 10, and then from 10 to 12, we clear the back of the building. And she said that plan helps me communicate with my tenants when they can move in and out of the building, when it is safe for them to operate, because her customers are the tenants. and whether it's a SLA that she's got to ensure for a logistics center to stay open, or people to come in and go out from the office. I'm sorry. Like all of that sort of flows through. You communicate to the property manager, your customer, she communicates with her customer.
Yeah, exactly. And she should be that property manager should be communicating things like, hey, you need to have the garbage area done by 3 a.m. because that's when the garbage truck comes in. Or I need to make sure that the handicap spots are done by 7 a.m. because it's right in front of a dialysis area. So that's when clients start coming in. So being able to catalog those times as to when things need to be done, again, is just a much easier, smoother, frictionless transfer of information from property manager all the way down to the operator.
Right, 100%. Another piece of the snow operation is the amount of liabilities that can come up. It seems like there's a lot of exposure here, between slip and fall, claims that you damaged the site. You were just looking at a whole list that Walmart shared. And apparently this can go up as high as 10 million if someone files a slip and fall lawsuits. Like, you guys have seen any stories like this in your experience? Like, how did your companies deal with it?
Yeah, unfortunately, sorry.
I
should call out. Tyler, you want to go first? You go first. My bad.
No worries. Yeah. So for us, it actually, an incident is what made us trying to change our thought process a little bit. Because like I just said, there was an event. It was really, really cold out. We did service it. We actually over-serviced the property. We salted it. We had, I think, I don't know how many tons of salt we had put down on the parking lot, and we had a claim that someone slipped and fall. At this point, our insurance is working with then their attorney that they hired. And again, we had GPS that showed the arrows going up and down the parking lot. You can put, as if you're doing salt. But we had to make a settlement with them because we could not prove at this given point that we put salt down. Again, we just have lines through the parking lot. So as common sense as it has to be when it comes to, lawsuits, we have to prove that we did our preventative, maintenance on it. So that's when we started integrating like photos and make sure, we have photos and timestamps of after we serviced it. That way, if it ever came back to us, okay, hey, at 1 a.m., we salted this. We checked again at 5 a.m. before, everyone needed to be there. We did spot salted the rest of it. And we did all these proactive things to make sure none of this happened. It wasn't a big win. I think we settled for like 10 or 20,000, something of that nature. But, even $10,000 to $20,000, if we implemented something like SiteRecon, a very, very inexpensive tool could have saved us that, which that instance, like I said, 10 or 20,000, but it could have been millions. And so the cost to prevent it is, something that I think is definitely very, very valuable when you start looking at snow operations and preventing those types of claims.
Yeah, I think slip and falls are unfortunately part of doing snow business. That if you stay in the game long enough, you're going to run into it, regardless of anything. So we can't get away from the claims, but what we're saying is we can protect ourselves as contractors by taking steps to really solidify that the service was actually done. And we at Level Green, we had the same instances, and there can be things that it could be communication between the property manager and the contractor, that the property manager said, hey, don't treat, and then something happened. But just taking photos of completed work with timestamps and GPS stamps will go such a long way in these lawsuits as evidence that the service that you said you did was actually done.
So it seems like there are really three things here that you guys are talking about. There's something you do before the operation starts, which is like you go to the property, you look at existing damage. It's like a pre-season survey. That seems to be like the first step. The second step is you plan your operation on it, like the direction in which you would plow the snow, where you would pile it, how the equipment will move around the building, the timings of operations and so on, depending on what kind of property it is. That's second. So you basically have an aerial map and you're drawing your plan on it in phases, in breaking it out into spaces. And the third step is once you have done the service, and probably you need to do this after every event. Once you've done the service, then you capture what you actually did on site and store that as proof of what you did. And ideally, share it then and there so that at least you can get paid ASAP and whatnot. So three things like pre-season, site inspection, planning operations on an aerial map, and then after service, just a proof of service record. Okay.
I think maybe there's even a fourth step in there as well. We have the post-snow season inspection as well. So sometimes
after the season,
after season, because you might damage something, but you might not know it until the snow melts, and be able to capture a post-season snow inspection as well is going to be crucial to basically nullify that preseason snow inspection. You hope they match. That's the idea. You hope they're the exact same. If they don't match, then that's where there's some liability there.
And again, that gives you the opportunity to be proactive about it. You would much rather go to a customer and say, hey, we damaged this curb. We're going to take care of it. We're aware of it, rather than having the customer come to you and say, hey, looks like you damaged this curb. How come you didn't say anything? It's now April.
Absolutely.
Very interesting. When do companies typically go in for renewals of snow contract? Is it like right after the season ends, March, April, you would just like go for renewal? Like that seems to be a great way to like start that conversation.
Yeah, I would say in the Mid-Atlantic here, it's probably not till August when contracts are going back out.
Okay.
So it is much later in the season. I think that there is a push to try and move that timeline up, as we in the Mid-Atlantic, it's also 95% time and material contracts instead of per push or seasonal contracts. But there is a shift that is trying to happen where there are more seasonal contracts. And by doing that, it is easier to get those contracts done in the April time period because they cover a 12-month period. So there is some movement towards that. But because the majority of the contracts in the Mid-Atlantic region are time and materials, there hasn't been a push to get them done very early in the year.
Agree with that, Tyler?
Absolutely correct. Yeah, I mean here in the Midwest, it's a little bit different when we do a lot more per push and seasonal. I mean, there has been an increase in seasonal stuff. I mean, obviously there is time and material stuff, but we're heavy on the per push, per occurrences, and then the seasonal. But yeah, here it's you're putting proposals out in July, August. And you want to get them signed by into August, September ideally. But we always have those stragglers that don't sign till November. Right. Or even till there's snow coming in a week. They waited all year round, and they want to sign a proposal or sign a bid, a week before a first snow event. So it's all part of the snow planning, but obviously earlier is better for the operational side than planning for sure.
Okay. Want to show everyone how you could actually go through those 3 steps. So step 1 is when you are pre-season and you are like mapping out existing damage on site. Let me just pause this video here. I want to show you like the full screen stuff on YouTube directly so that it's higher resolution. All right, let's go full screen, play. So curb damage is a big part of preseason inspections that you do. Take a note, click some photos, tag it on the spot where you see that damage. You can add some more tags, like if you want to find these things later on easily to create reports. Let me play that again for you. Simple, create a note, add some points, take a photo, maybe 2, add a tag, fix location first, add a tag, and you're good to go. So Easy, right? You do that on a few sites. Hang on, let's just look back at this checklist. So curbs, bollards, light poles, speed bumps, landscaping, damaged landscaping. Like, what does snow have to do with
Well,
that?
turf or mulch beds if you're snowblown by a sidewalk, or if you push up, snow up into an island that has grass or whatever. That's how you damage trees, so on and so forth.
If you want to push curb to curb, that means lifting the plow over the curb and pushing snow piles up onto the turf areas. In doing so, it's very possible to rip that turf up that is close to the curb lines.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Also,
Storm drains.
that salt, and you're salting a sidewalk. Sometimes that salt will bleed off and kill all your grass for a foot or 18 inches off the side of the sidewalk. So there's some landscaping repairs that have to be done for that. And it can get into your mulch at the same time and kill off your plants in the mulch then.
Interesting. So this is very relevant for post-season too, like, or not even post-season, like post-service. Right? Or you don't like this we are still talking about pre-season, but it seems like if that thing is happening, would you want to report it?
Yeah, like if you see a tree in an island that's damaged before you're doing your snow operations, identify that, because otherwise they're gonna try to pin that on you at the end of the year.
I got you. Okay. Storm drains, fans, fire hydrants. Oh yeah. Sidewalks, buildings, drive-through awnings, dumpsters. Interesting. There is damage happening just because of weather. Nothing that you do. What's OGP? Would you know? Damage in OGP picking area? Maybe something specific to Walmart.
I don't know what OGP means.
Interesting. All right. So
online grocery pickup.
Yeah, that's what
oh, interesting. Okay. Did you search it?
No,
All right. Cool. All right, sweet. Okay, so that's pre-season, all the damage stuff. Anything else you would like to sort of document when you're doing a pre-season inspection apart from damaged assets?
I think this covers the majority of what I, unless there's like equipment that's on site or something of that nature that's sitting there. But I think,
Right.
I think that covered 99% of the assets
right.
you might have.
So you go do that survey, you capture all those points where you notice damage, and then you create a report. You walk around the site, you capture all the damages, and you can export this report right from your app. Right here, you got everything you wanted to check off: who created it, when it was created, what did you notice, where it was, a photo of it. This was created on site, so we have a GPS location saved. So everything is time-stamped, location stamped, making sure all loose ends are tied off right off the bat. By the way, you can have this report exported. As soon as you sit in the truck, you can send that over to the property manager. You can send that over to your team, and start a conversation. So that's step one. Any questions at this point, guys? You're about to move to step two. Feel free to unmute yourself. All right, step two. Depending on how complex the operation on the site is, you might want to map a lot of different items there. You could obviously have property lines, you should have parking lot areas, you should have sidewalk areas that need to be cleaned out, stake locations, where you're going to store your equipment. If you're going to leave that on site, the property manager should know. Where you're going to pile your snow, that's very important. If you're going to leave the pile there, you're not going to remove it, especially if it's covering a parking space, then that parking space is not available. priority areas you would salt or plow more frequently. You can have all that mapped. Let me go full screen so that you can have a look at this map clearly. Tyler, Michael, you guys would have created a bunch of such maps. Your colleagues would have. Can you like talk about like some different kinds of maps you have created for different kinds of properties? What kind of stuff you were documenting here? Tyler, let's just start with you.
Yeah, so we used to do similar mapping to this. I would highlight an area that would be a snow stacking zone. I would highlight an area for equipment storage, where we're allowed to keep skid steers or loaders or boxes on a site if it's a big enough box. Or even highlight areas, because sometimes you get a strip center that one part of it is done by the owner of this section of the building. So you mark off that area, knowing that you're not going to be performing service in that. And then like you have here, the directions of which we want to plow the snow. We want to push away from the building. We don't want snow piles up along the curb line, up along the building. It doesn't look clean in any ways, and it's also an added liability for that, the more snow that's up by the building. So pushing that out away from the building and out of obstruction zones. I know a key thing too that happened a lot for us is even people trying to put snow piles into the islands. Well, eventually you get a lot of snow, it stacks up and you can't see around them. So then and then they call you and say, hey, come out and move this snow. And then it's an added cost to your business as well, because whether they're not going to pay for you making a mistake like that. They clearly told you where it needed to be put at, and you didn't abide by it. So those are the type of things that are very, very important that we felt for operational standpoint was key for to basically be efficient with it, but also make sure that we didn't have to come back and fix our own work type of thing.
Michael?
Yeah, rework is a killer to profitability, especially in seasonal contracts, because you're not getting paid to go do that a second time. It's a little bit easier in time and materials if every time you're going out there, you're charging the client for it. But you're taking time away from other clients, which means that somebody's satisfaction is going down, even if you're getting paid to go do that work. Somebody's having to wait longer to have their site serviced. So this is an excellent map. The only thing that I would potentially add to this is adding estimated times for completion for each person, so that person one is running the snowplow from the truck and is going to do all of those white lines. It should take approximately 3 hours based on a 4-inch snowfall or something like that, so that there are Gantt targets for each crew member to be aiming for. That's how you increase efficiency, is by saying this is your time target. If you just say go clear the site, then it's going to take them as long as it takes them. And there's no real sense of urgency to that necessarily. So adding some time frames to this will just help the crews understand what the approximate time for completion should be for each one of these tasks, whether that is clearing sidewalks or plowing the parking lot or salting operations. They should all have estimated times to it.
How much time would you spend training your guys to read this stuff and actually align them to this is how to read the map, for example?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think the training really starts in like September, October. At Level Green, we did dry runs where we would literally hook up all of the equipment and get the crews. Yeah, absolutely. We would take a slow day and just say, all right, we're going to hook up all the plows. We're going to hook up all the spreaders. We're going to make sure everyone knows how to do that. And then we're going to send them out to do dry runs. Go to the site and take this map with you. How would you produce it? And then log that time into Aspire, because it was another good time tracking way for us to practice that. So dry runs are something that I encourage everyone to do. It may seem a little bit silly. Obviously, we didn't have them plow dry parking lots because we're not trying to cause any damage, but going out there and kind of going through the motions so that the crew leader, the idea behind the drive run is instead of actually doing the operations, the crew leader talks through those operations with the crew members so that there's a good plan once the snow actually hits the ground.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think just a step above that and kind of go on what Michael said is, if you don't give those allotted hours to people and it will just take however long it takes them, no pun intended, but it's kind of a snowball effect, right? It's going to take them longer to get the site property number 2, number 3, number 4. And eventually, you're prolonging their day. The last customers will get mad because it's taking them a lot longer to get there because you planned on it them being there in 6 hours. They're there in 10 hours, which obviously it's hurting your bottom line at the end of the day because you're paying more labor out as well. The name of the game is to be more profitable. And how do we do that? Create efficiencies.
Got you. So draw the plan, train them, then they go to the site. And is there like this after the event sort of debrief? This is what actually happened.
That usually happens like the next day. Once everyone goes home and is able to to rest, they're able to go home and say, okay, hey, we did all this service. It's usually part of the billing process of the next day. But that's how you're managing the post service. Like what happened? Did we service it 12 times? And that's where like the post service will kind of align with what your billing operations are, because a lot of the times people that are doing the billing aren't the people typically that do the work. Usually they'll bring in production managers or general managers, branch managers, or whoever might be facilitating snow to say, hey, let's get this build out. And usually it'll take another day to get billing out for most companies.
Nice. All right. So sorry, this is a fast one. I'm going to slow this down. All right. So guys mentioned post service assessment. So moving on to step 3. And here we have a template. So when you were looking at step 1, you were looking at a simple note where you were adding text, description, photos, tagging it on a map. There wasn't structure to it. But you can also have a template if there's a specific way in which you want to document your post-service report. Just open it up in a bit. All right, so you click on select template, you select a snow removal audit, and then you have a set of questions that you can define based on the parameters your company wants to look at, your contracts. Go about filling that up. Take some photos, back that up. You can actually have a photo with every question too, so that you can back up every claim that you are making with actual information. And that's it. Your audit is here, and you can export it into a report. So as you go from site to site servicing them, you can have this template in your app. Your crews can have access to it, and they can fill that out once they're done. Michael, Tyler, what do you guys think about this one?
Yeah, definitely. This is going to be, like I was talking earlier, like this is a very key point to making sure the customer knows you were there, what time you were there, what service you provided, and some of the information around it. Like, usually, you get into some of the national service provider work, they're going to ask you to download the stuff in their own app. You have to enter this information into their own app. It's great. You send it off to them, but you don't have that stored in your database. Whether that's in a file, you might have it somewhere, or, if you want to upload it into a customer within Aspire or whatever your CRM solution is, to keep that information to yourself is going to be key for billing purposes and also liability purposes as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a huge tool for the green side of the industry. It's awesome that it's also available now for the white side of the business. This is something that was highly utilized at Level Green because it's so easy. It's all in one place. It's quick. It looks great when it's produced, which means that you don't have to do anything before you send it to the client. So this is super, because the other way that it's been done is account managers take pictures or operators take pictures, and you have no idea like what site that actually is on, or where that picture was taken from. So the fact that it geotags exactly where you're taking this photo from, and you can put additional information there, it's so easy. And again, it's proactive communication, so it's exactly what customers are looking for.
Is there a question you would add or remove from this list? Hang on, let me show you that list again.
And I think each company, wants kind of their own unique questions.
Right.
But I think from a base standpoint, how much snow was on the ground, what the temperature was, what services you provided. If you completed a service, it's because you don't want to, be there and start a service but not complete it for whatever reason. Maybe a piece of equipment broke down, or we all have been there where the salt in your bulk spreader freezes up, and you have to leave off site, and so making sure those services are done, and then providing pictures for those are the key things, is in time stamping that. Those are the key things that people really want to know, and that's the information that you need to. You could get into a little bit more depth, where you can say how much salt did you put down. You can ask questions like that, or how many bags you put down on sidewalks. It really depends on each operation, what information they want to collect. But the nice thing about SiteRecon is it's very versatile. We can create different templates, and makes it a little more custom for each operator out there. So
very cool. I just remembered a story that Brian told me. Brian was supposed to be here. Michael, thank you so much for filling in for Brian. Maybe a lot of you came here because they were Brian. Maybe you would have come here if we still had Michael. By the way, getting to the Brian story. So he was talking about this case where the liability came a few years later. The slip and fall incident actually came a few years later. And by then, if you don't have that, you don't have a camera roll, and that was back in the day when people used to have cameras. So pulling out that camera roll is like really weird if you're doing that in a courtroom. And then even if you have like photos but not organized, stamped and geolocated, then using them as a proof becomes really hard. So today you might think, oh, it's all good. I have these photos here, but 2 years later, maybe you lost the phone. Maybe that conversation is not easy to tag. Maybe the guys who had exchanged photos are not part of the organization anymore. And so there are a lot of ways in which you can lose that data. And you don't want to have, you don't want to be in a situation where you're looking over your shoulder for all these risks. So this can solve that. Now, if you are actually making a note here, let's say you are tagging it at a specific location, right? You can define which locations you want to do the audit at, and then you can go and collect your information there. So someone in the office, let's say a production manager, defined that. And then the crew on site, the guys who are actually working, someone who's responsible for creating this final assessment report, goes to all those 4 or 5 points on the property and captures those photos and reports. So you can make sure that your process flows as expected when the operation is done. All right, sweet. Pretty much at the end of the 3 points you were talking about, right? So step 1, pre-season. Step 2, you plan your operations before you go on site. After you do the service, you create this assessment. And then as you close out the season, you can have a different form that you are capturing for every site. You can keep track of which sites you have actually captured these forms on and which sites are actually still left to be surveyed. Make this part of your closing package. Hopefully it helps you with retention a few months later when you renew the contract.
We have 2 questions in the chat, Utkarsh.
All right. Yep, let's do that.
Willa asked if you can share step 1 again. Willa, that's going to be your preseason snow inspection. So before the season comes out, you're going to go out and take pictures or document any damage that might be there before you start service. So that's just your internal process in your step 1. And we can have a further discussion about that too if you want to get into more specifics on your operation. But that's how we kind of identify step 1 of the snow operations. Create your preseason snow inspection, Create your mapping is step 2. And then your third is your post-service and documentation as well. And then Spencer asked, the audit function is really exciting. Is there any way or any API that could integrate these audits specifically with images with Salesforce?
Yeah, so I think Salesforce, you can you should be able to do that. Basically, you can pull information out from SiteRecon, and that's how we have built it. And I know for a fact you can push information into Salesforce through its APIs. So we can figure out how that bridge will work. Because both these systems are open, so it's a matter of figuring out how this information will flow between these two systems. It's totally doable. Spencer, we can, if you use Salesforce, we can figure out how to do that. We could either use Zapier for that, or we could write a custom bridge. Will, I just asked another question. Sorry,
Yeah.
Tyler, you were about to take that.
Yeah, snow audit can be adjusted to how we want it. Yeah, so we have a Teams plan where you can create your template that you want, and you create what you want the template to say. If you want to use a template, you drop the pins, you drop the notes, the tags if you want to do it. It's all things that you're going to be able to create. We don't have just a blank template where it's like, hey, use it our way. We have the ability to make it so you can have it show the information you want to see or you want your team to be able to fill out on the field. So definitely can be adjusted for sure.
And then you can have a few different templates in there too. Like you can have a preseason one, you can have a post-service, you can have a post-season, residential, commercial. You can have a whole bunch of templates in there. Very cool. There was a point I just made when I concluded this. Oh, one more question. How do you go about it? Details of that. Will, are you talking about this from a training standpoint or an access standpoint? From an access standpoint, okay, access. So your account managers are creators in the system, and you can have one person in the crew become a creator for the months that they will be doing the snow work. They can become a creator, and then they can be adding all these photos, notes, and reports from the field. You basically just need one person to learn that thing. Tyler, would you agree? Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, then you're definitely gonna have the ability where you can, if you're doing just the site assessment and doing the notes, then yes, you're gonna want, people that are out performing the service to be able to want to do that. But if you're looking at just like seeing those snow maps and seeing those other things, you have the ability to have unlimited viewers in your software as well, so they can view that data. They just can't edit it or make changes. So it really depends on ultimately what your workflow process looks like. If you're wanting people in the field to be able to see the information that you have, then great. If you want people to do the snow audit forms like post-service, then yeah, someone from your team or someone that's coming up to complete the service out needs to be a creator within SiteRecon.
So you'll go to your team management page, invite them. We can help out with training, get these templates loaded into your workspace. So reach out to us. You want to do templates. More specifically, reach out to Tyler. This is his contact information on the screen. Also drop the calendar link in chat. So Tyler will help you get your templates set up in the app, help get your folks trained, and then they can go onto the site, start collecting data, start filling out those assessment forms. And if you aren't sure of the best practices, you want to like bounce off some ideas, then of course, he can help you out with that as well.
Absolutely.
So we have an Excel sheet where we have like a format. You define questions, you want to have drop downs, you want to have radio buttons, like what kind of information you want your templates to show, and your guys to like fill out in the field. and we work through those questions on a call with you. You basically have your template ready. We plug that into the backend of your account, and the template starts showing up for your guys. Every creator who has access to the account will be able to see the templates. And then once the season is over, we can basically remove those templates and add the green templates, your landscaping templates instead.
Good questions for sure.
Sweet. We got a few more minutes to go, guys. Feel free to unmute yourself, ask questions. You will get a recording of the session. We'll send over as much information as we can. If you want to reach out to us one-on-one, all of us are on LinkedIn.
I have somewhat of a map-related question.
Go for it, Bob.
On the map itself, when you're drawing in your plow paths, if you will, how does that look like? Is there a new command in the line pull down or something I'm missing here?
Yeah, so basically these arrows are produced by a tool called the path tool. And the path tool is, I think, till a few days ago, was activated for accounts only on demand. And yesterday we flipped the switch, and like every account should have access to it. So path tool is how you draw these arrows. So not so different from drawing a line. Basically, you are drawing line segments. You start the line, you double click, you close the line, and then the arrow shows up on the second point that you dropped on the map, starting from the first point.
So the path and the line are two entirely different things. You have to have a separate layer for line and a separate layer for path.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then an idea I just had is like, if you're drawing those paths, you can actually have phases of these maps in separate view. So you want these guys to clear out these properties in phases. So you can have a view that has like phase one, clear out the front. So you draw out all these lines here, pushing out to the road in the front of the property. And then you have another view where you like phase two, you clear out stuff around the building, just draw lines there, so on. You can have like different layers also in the same view, color coded, to say this is phase one, this is phase two. And you can name your layer as such so that guys know, okay, this is what we are looking at. Any specific questions on actual execution of the thing, guys, we'll help you out. So get in touch with us. We'll show you how it's done on SiteRecon, all these 3 steps and the 4th step. And we'll be very happy to help you. We are right at the end of our 1-hour slot. Really appreciate you all taking the time out to join us for some learning this Friday. Tyler, Michael, thank you so much, guys, for sharing your experiences with us.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Have a good one.
Appreciate you guys. Take care.